My best friend from high school is Eric Cuevas, and he lives in Texas, so he's not around to defend himself. So I guess I can say whatever I want to. We played football together. We went to the same college together. And in the winter of our first year in college, I came home one day after a long day being in a chemistry lab, and my mom walked in my room and was crying. And she didn't usually do things like that. So my first question was, "Is Dad okay?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "What's the matter?" She said, "You got number 4 in the draft lottery." Okay, fine. About 2 minutes later, my phone rang, or our phone rang, because nobody had our phone back then, 1971, Nick. We're not and it was Eric. And he said, "Holy shit, man, I got 5 in the draft lottery." And I said, "Quit bitching. I got 4. So then he said, "Well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?" I make him sound like a real wimp. He wasn't a wimp, but he was a little wimpy that day. So we got together and started thinking about it, and we came up with a plan that we were going to join the Coast Guard. That would get us back in the school the quickest. So we went down to the recruiter and said, "This Eric, I'm Tim, we want to join." He said, "Okay, cool, let's get you guys to take the test." Okay, it wasn't an entrance exam for Mensa, okay? But there were some percentages and things of that nature, and train A leaves and goes west, and train B goes east, that kind of thing. We get the results of the test. He says to me, "You did very well. Unfortunately, Eric, you failed the exam." I said, "Okay, well, what does that mean?" He said, "Well, that means you're going to get a physical and he goes home." So when can you take the test again? And he says, "You can take it tomorrow." I said, "Your ass is down here taking the test tomorrow, and we're going to tutor you this evening." So we sat down, talked a little bit about percentages and so forth. Eric passed the test. So we go off and get our physicals. I got classified healthy young animal 1A. He got classified 4F. And I said, "Eric, how did that happen?" He said, "Well, it's my asthma." And I knew Eric well enough to know he didn't have asthma. And I told him that. I said, "You don't have asthma." He said, "Don't you remember, man, we'd be out there practicing and that wind would blow in and we'd all have a tough time breathing?" I said, "There was a corn products plant right up the road and they were burning the corn. We were all having trouble breathing." Okay, long story short, too late. I go off to basic training. He's still 4F. He gets reclassified 1A. How that happened, I don't know, but I guess they figured out, as well as I knew, he didn't have asthma. But then he subsequently was let out of the draft because he's the sole surviving son. But every time we get together, he never misses an opportunity to say, "Hey, man, you remember what it was like when we almost got drafted together?" I said, "Yeah, you remember what it was like when you flunked the test?"